Perfect with that.
Hello, friends, men, women, everything in between. Jeff Blubin of Practically Tactical and Armed Dynamics. And in this video, it is aptly titled BJJ, The Path to Black Belt. And it's featuring a very, very dear friend of mine. Yes, I have friends. So don't say I'm lying off the bat. And my coach in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Brett Linebarger of Daniel Gracie Delco. And I intend to. What did I say it wrong?
Oh no! I'm just.
I was
sitting here watching myself.
Brett thought that his head was like cockeyed. I'm like, it's straight, and I could say that. So I'm gonna have Brett start by introducing himself, a little bit about his background, and we're gonna kind of go into all sorts of different stuff. But this is not going to be how to do a triangle, how to do an armbar. There are a million videos like that. This is going to be a lot more of kind of what I wanted to talk about, which is the psychology of getting the black belt. What?
It's a lot of credentials for a guy like me.
Well, you've got a doctorate somewhere in there. Do you have a D and an R in your name? Close enough. All right. Yeah. Close enough. Close enough. Scott Phillips, Tactical Fedora says, congratulations on getting your black belt, Jeff. Thank you, Scott. I miss you, Tactical Fedora. Okay, so Brett, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. So I've been involved in grappling for a little over 20 years. Started wrestling back in 2001, freshman year of high school. Got into it because it was a way to be better at playing football. That didn't turn out too great, but I actually became a pretty decent wrestler. Was actually very, very lucky back in 2005, just before the Ultimate Fighter broke with the Stephan Bonner Forrest Griffin fight, just kind of like the UFC kind of reintroduced itself to the mainstream. One of my good friends, Chuck Doyle, actually a little high school teacher of mine, he started a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu club at our high school, which was kind of shocking that I ever got off the ground there. But that was my introduction. From there, this was my senior year of high school. In 2005, I was at a boxing gym a week or two before graduation, and kind of decided I want to do mixed martial arts. Spend the next couple of years training, had some amateur fights, some professional fights, did that for a while before I joined the real world. And then since then, I've still been training, and I started actually coaching other people. I've had my black belt for just about 6 years now. So there's that. And yeah, finally opened up just last year. Last January, actually, we opened up in Delaware County, also known as Delco. And I've been running that, and we're actually getting ready to go to our first permanent location. As right now, we're renting space in a firehouse rental hall. But yeah, we're ready to do the real thing come February.
Yeah, and I don't really recall, because I'm horrendous with timelines, times, dates, etc. You can ask anybody in my family that has a fucking birthday, because one of the other family members would be like, "Hey, it's David's birthday tomorrow." I'll be like, right. That's my brother. But everyone's come to expect it, so it's whatever. We're good at some things, we're bad at others. But I think that I knew you back when you were a purple belt.
Yep. Came to Daniels as a purple belt. I mostly did no-game mixed martial arts. At that point, I'd been out of fighting for about 3 years, was working a regular job. So I came to Daniels as a purple. Technically had 4 stripes. That's a whole other story. And then, yeah. I held that for about 1.5 years, 2 years before he gave me my brown and then my black.
Mm-hmm. So both Brett and I have had the tremendous honor of training under one of the Gracies, Daniel Gracie, who is one of the cousins of Renzo Gracie. And Daniel operated Renzo Gracie Philly for many years. That was formerly on North American Street, and now is on Jasper Street in Kensington, Fishtown. And back in the old academy, it was like a subterranean dungeon, tons of character, and filled with characters. It's as well. I remember, I have to credit or place credit where credit's due. I was not training jiu-jitsu at that point. And my buddy Sean Lupka of Anti-Fragile Training, I was like, we were talking about some shit, and we actually met in ECQC and fought. That was the first time we met, and we realized like last year that it was exactly 10 years ago on the date that we were both coaching this ECQC more recently, that we had fought in the fucking gravel of that exact range. So it was like, wow. So that was pretty cool. But Sean was talking to me and he's like, dude, what is wrong with you? And I'm like, in which department? And he's like, dude, you have Daniel Gracie a 6-minute drive from your house. And why are you not training with him? And I didn't have any real good answer other than I'm scared and lazy. So there's the truth. I was like, I did a little reflection. I'm like, wow, I have to go train with Daniel. He's a fucking Gracie. And then that kind of got me back into jiu-jitsu. I started my jiu-jitsu journey in 2002 when I was at college in West Virginia University. And you talk about luck with meeting with the guy that was teaching or whatnot. You said your buddy in 2005 or whatnot. Yeah.
Well, my buddy. You've met him.
Which guy?
Big Chuck. Large, just got his black belt, real funny.
Anyway. Yeah. No, I remember him. Yeah, no, I know. I'm kidding. And so speaking about luck, so I was really into watching UFC, and there was a place where back then we had fucking VHSs, and I used to go, and it was really funny because the fighting videos, UFCs, etc., were in the same section of this video store as the porn. And like everybody that walks into the porn thing, they're probably saying, no, man, I'm just looking for the fighting videos. And I was like, no, man, I'm really actually here for the fighting videos. And I watched this guy, Hoist Gracie, 160 pounds, 6 foot, and he was killing these monsters, and not even sweating. And I was like, I had done martial arts. I've been doing martial arts since I'm 8 years old. Started with Kempo karate and subsequently did Munmun Kwan Taekwondo, some Krav Maga, Western style boxing, Tang Soo Do, let's see what else, Southern Shaolin Kung Fu, like all these various different martial arts. And I was like, he's destroying all these guys. And so I'll land this plane now. So I'm walking in the Kroger grocery store, and I see this real cool looking black dude, shaved head, really nice leather jacket. And he's got this binder in his hand, a black binder in his hand. I don't know if I ever told you this story. And I overhear, because, we're always eavesdropping as humans, him say, Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. And I'm like, huh. And I kind of sneak a peek, and I see that he's got the triangle and the Gracie name on the front. And he was talking to this like old woman, which I thought was so funny, because I'm like, bro, she ain't doing it. Like, she's literally like a blue hair. And so when they kind of broke away, I'm like looking at like something I don't even fucking eat, because I was trying to keep close near him. And I walked up to him, I just beelined it over, and I was like, hey man, you're talking about Gracie Jiu-Jitsu? And he's like, yeah, I teach it. And I'm like, really? I mean, totally happenstance. And his and I paths would never have crossed otherwise. Like, we didn't roll with the same crews. We didn't visit the same, bars, whatever. Of course, I, didn't have a fake ID or anything. Never admit to that. And we got to talking, and this dude, he was like real cool. And it was crazy because back then, so he was a blue belt. And back then, you didn't see black belts. You didn't see brown belts. You didn't see purple belts. And the funny thing was, he wound up being like one of the best teachers that I'd ever had. I think he had family money or something. I haven't spoken to him in a long, long time, but he would go from West Virginia to California, train with the Gracies, come back, and that's how he learned jiu-jitsu, because that was your only choice back then. And so it was very, very technical. And it's funny because he did all the things the Gracies, or some of the Gracies, would do. Like, they would go, when they want to emphasize the hand, they'd be like, so you take the right hand, go here. He would always have his belt on too loose, so his shirt would open up, his gi would open up. And I'm like, it was funny because I was always like, you remember, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And he wound up being a great teacher. I was like his first private student, to the best of my knowledge. And then he slowly grew like a little group, and they were some fucking tough, corn-fed, redneck dudes. And I mean, super strong. And we would just beat the shit out of each other, and I would usually get a rear naked choke and do well. Back then, I think I had a rear naked choke and an arm bar that were really solid. But he was a great teacher, and that introduced me, and that really got the fire burning. And then graduated college, wherever I moved, I would try to find an academy, a gym, and I did some no-gi. Believe it or not, I never told you that. Some no-gi in New York it was under the banner of Straight Blast Gym, and it was a guy named Christian, and I think he was just a purple belt, but he was a competitor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they had MMA there, they had striking, they had no-gi, and then they also had like this fit to fight thing, which was great. And then I just kind of kept going. I'm always on the short bus, so everything takes me longer. And I have an IEP, so I can prove it, individual educational plan. Thank you very much, American schooling. But I always had this one consistent that I would go back to jiu-jitsu, and that was my foray into it. And then fast forward to Fishtown, North American Street with Daniel Gracie. I went, and the biggest thing to me, and I'd like your thoughts on this, was, for me, obvious. There's two different types, I think, of ways that we can approach self-protection in general. Don't care if it's with a shiv, a pistol, a brick, or jiu-jitsu, or grappling, clinch, pugilism. We can approach it from an empowerment perspective, which is what I do when I am teaching, or we can approach it from a fear perspective. Mm-hmm. Now, unfortunately, because the empowerment perspective is so much healthier, in my opinion, and hence why I do it when I'm teaching people gun stuff and sometimes fundamentals, jiu-jitsu, than the fear thing. But for me, fear has always been a great motivator. Mm-hmm. And I didn't want to get, like, my thing is, nobody's killing me. I will kill me. Like, nobody's, and if somebody does fucking kill me, then I'm going to make them work really hard for it. But the biggest thing for me, and then I'll hand it over to you, Brett, is it was so social. And these people and it was amazing. I'd heard about this, it's almost like the Filipino martial arts, where, you shake a Filipino martial art, like a true Filipino person's, who's in the martial arts, the Filipino martial arts, and their handshake is like a dead fish. They're like, they're very, very nice and all smiles. And then they fucking pull out a knife and they're doing all this crazy shit. And then they go back to being friends. And I was like, to me, that was jiu-jitsu, because in my opinion, there's no faster way to accelerate camaraderie and friendship than meeting strangers and choking each other. Thoughts on that? A lot there. But
there is. So I do want to touch on both the fear-based approach versus the empowerment. But right now I'll just jump to the piece on the friendliness. And it's weird as we've become more civilized, and I'm far from a sociologist or a proper historian here, but we don't fight. We don't roll. We don't get in tumbles anymore. Like when kids, they get in a fist fight in school, and it's this huge deal. I was growing up in the aftermath of Columbine and zero tolerance for everything. Had a couple of fights, when I was in elementary school. By middle school, by high school, it was out. It was this huge deal. And I think we've definitely done people a disservice, because frankly, we're made for it. Aggression, and not necessarily in like a negative sense, but just, again, you and me said we're having fun, right? Like, people, not just boys, not just men, women, everybody, it's part of it. We need physical intimacy, right? Through, say, sex. We need camaraderie, we need friendship. And frankly, we just need to blow off some steam, hit each other, roll, wrestle, whatever. And I think there's part of the reason jiu-jitsu is so popular is, as far as combat sports, it's got like the lowest barrier to entry. It seems a rough time if you're coming into it, right? Some gyms are friendlier than others, but even a real friendly one, eventually, man, you're gonna get your nose is gonna bleed. First time you spar, almost guaranteed. Until your nose gets kind of like, hate to say it, but used to it, it's going to bleed. Wrestling, very high impact, very difficult. Definitely a young man sport. Judo, high amplitude throws, can be rough on the body. Jiu-jitsu is kind of the easiest way we can get in there. And don't be wrong, at a high level, jiu-jitsu can be really rough, particularly if you take that the route of mixed martial arts. But if you want to get a 30-year-old office worker who hasn't been in a fist fight since elementary school, if you want to get him doing a contact sport and kind of learn how to blow off that steam in a safe and effective manner, jiu-jitsu has a lot to offer on there. I think that's been a huge part of its success. You look at most martial arts out there, and their money tends to almost entirely be from their kids' programs. And they'll have an adult program too, but it's not nearly as big of a deal. Versus jiu-jitsu almost has an inverted model. Don't be wrong, your successful schools still will have a very busy and full kids program, but a good portion, if not most of the money, is made from their adults, which is unique in that industry. As far as the self-defense, approaching that from a fear-based or an empowerment base, I think the fear-based is probably easier to get people in. Fear sells. We see that, day in, day out. You watch the news, read a newspaper, whatever. And it's really easy to lead with that if you're trying to get people in. Try to explain to people like, hey, the world's a violent place, but you can deal with it. That's a tougher sell. It takes a kind of a special kind of person to get that through. Most people that are coming in from a self-defense perspective, usually they've had a come to Jesus moment. Whether or not they actually get the Jesus beat out of them or robbed, sometimes it could be a close call. And they come in, but usually that kind of has to be their own. But if you're trying to sell people to like a room full of people and trying to get them in, then yeah, leading off with that fear is going to be the way to do it. I do agree with you. I like the empowering version. But I see why we tend to lead off with the other. Mind you, that also tends to be a short-term motivator. If you come in for self-defense, one of two things happens. You either get enough, typically about a blue belt's pretty good for self-defense. You do that, maybe you're boxing. You can handle yourself pretty decently. And then you're either going to find something you love about the sport or you're going to drop. On the other hand, and you do see this a lot as well, you come in, you try it out, and you realize that, no, we're not going to teach you everything in 2-3 lessons. You're going to be on your way. Becoming comfortable with physical contact and physical aggression, that's a long road. That takes a while. And that also scares off a lot of people. It's much easier to just go back and go, you know what, maybe that guy in the subway didn't want to hurt me. Maybe I could just give him my wallet. Maybe I could just walk away next time. And maybe I don't need to get the crap kicked out of me 3 days a week for the next 5 years. But yeah.
Yeah. And with respect to the, modern society, kids can't play, kids can't be kids. Nobody should be offended. We're trying to create an America where nobody is offended, and that's not the real world. I have found, and one of the things that I talk to about people that have a real knowledge deficit, they don't know anything about jiu-jitsu, and they're like, why jiu-jitsu and stuff like that. And one of the things I always bring up is, and this differs from kind of all other traditional martial arts, most other traditional martial arts, is that we, like a striking, like a hard form martial art, etc., pugilistic art, is that we as American society, we don't really touch each other. And now we can finally shake hands again, post-COVID. But I mean, short of shaking hands, bro hug, hi mom, hi dad, whatever, or being like sexually intimate, we don't touch each other. We're not a touchy society. There is that that boundary that we have around us. And so by going in the first lesson, you are physically touching, and it sounds kind of funny when you think about it, but it's the truth. You're physically touching another human being, in addition to the fact that you're trying to win. There's a competitiveness, that you're trying to actually win something. These are things that are not really done in America. And in fact, with regards to the win thing, we are now living also in a society, which I don't like, speaking of the, everybody gets a, what is it? Participation trophy.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get a participation trophy in jiu-jitsu. I mean, the fact of the matter is that if you show up to a class, then you've done most of your job, because the man or the woman, etc., that we walk in that night, that day, that morning, may be different from the one that we were yesterday or the next day. We have our baggage. We have our the things that went wrong in the day, the things that went right in the day, but the cool thing is that more often than not, we are forced to leave that at the door, or better yet, more aptly put, at the edge of the mat. Once we bow on and enter the mat space, we have to be present, and suddenly all of those problems are no longer with us, because if we are no longer present, then we lose. Then we go from an advantageous position to a disadvantageous position. We get submitted. We don't do well. And that's why, for someone like me, ADHD with all sorts of other acronyms, shooting and martial arts are the two physical activities, that force my brain to be 100% present so that it's still. And that's not something that I can say at any other point of my day.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't touch each other in current society.
No, and that's like, honestly, from just a mental health perspective, that is something that's kind of really just not well understood. And it's something I think that's why jiu-jitsu tends to get such fanatical adherence. People come in there, they're not, again, it's kind of a stereotype, right? That 30-year-old kind of dumpy office guy comes in, has never done anything, maybe just got dumped by his girlfriend's looking for something to do, can't really figure things out. They're a little awkward, like I said, a little maybe a little heavier than they want to be. They're just kind of, they don't really know how to be a man, right? And they don't know how to be comfortable with other men. They don't, they have their friends, right? Maybe, they didn't have a really party, they never really hung out since like they're in college, and they kind of like lost touch with whatever that is. You're in an office all day. It's a very sterile environment. It's not fun. If you're work from home, I mean, cool. It's a nice step in the right direction, but it's still not the same. And you put them in this atmosphere where, again, it is okay to touch each other. It's okay to be physically aggressive, right? In a fun way, in a safe way. Although when you first start, your body doesn't know that, right? That fight or flight's kicking in. It's very exciting. And I think it's almost just such an overwhelming shock to the system. They're like, wow, this is great. I want to have this all the time. And then, eventually after they get their, first 3 jiu-jitsu tattoos and then they quit a blue belt, if they come back, they usually calm down for a bit. But yeah, it's absolutely provides something that we need just as humans. It's not weird. It's not unusual. It's weird that we don't have it.
Yeah. And it's almost like that physical breaking of bread together, that it is the most rapid way to develop camaraderie and respect for one another, because you've both lived through the same round, and that is something that's, I've always been in awe of that. I'm still in awe of that. 20 years later, I'm still in awe of that, so that you smack, tap, do your thing, and then at the end, it's like, even if you didn't do well, there is the expectation that respect will be there again. Smack, tap, bow, and oftentimes, even when I don't do great, I'm just like, it's that awe of, you did better than me, and there's nobody else. It's a one-on-one. I can't blame the fucking umpire. I can't blame my team member. It's just us. So if we're to get good at jiu-jitsu, I believe that it requires intellectual honesty and really honest introspection into not only like what we're physically doing, but our mindset. And that's kind of like one of the really interesting things to me is, and I tell people that aren't jiu-jitsu practitioners, I say it's as much physical as it is up here.
Honestly, it's the more I go through, the more I'm like, it's the opposite way. It's even more in the head. The body's the relatively easy part. I had something. shit, gone.
Well, it's like the body is the vessel, but if the guy steering the wheel upstairs isn't steering you true, it doesn't matter what your physical attributes are. They can only get you so far, rather, you know. So we actually have some great questions too. So Matthew Dropko's got a really good question. Yeah, there's a little chat there.
Yep, you
I like what Matthew says. He says, "Hi, Matthew. By the way, Matthew, 1 year plus without a drink for me. So it's another reason that I think that I got my black belt was I was really, for me, clear-headed, which is, we've got a lot of work to do there. But so Matthew says about the parents thing and kids fighting. There's no helicopter parenthood to baby goats and rams.
Yeah, got to bang heads.
And I would love a baby goat, like a pygmy goat, as long as you could train it to like shit in a litter box. But that's not the story. Let's just move on. So Matthew says, so if a new person starts, is it a black belt that works with them first? I'm asking because if I was to do it, I, one, won't know my capabilities, and two, wouldn't know if, when I submit, or and not be hurt. And he says, but I think a black belt would have more experience in reading an opponent than a new person. So I'll let you field that one first.
So typically, yeah, we are going to want to pair you up with a more experienced partner. Now, it doesn't have to necessarily be a black belt. Also depends on just the size of the gym. Like if I have Jeff in, I love pairing him up with our new guys. Again, he's a black belt as of Sunday. Mind you, the difference between Jeff on Sunday and the Jeff on Saturday, not much at all. It's a day. So if you got paired with him when he was a brown belt versus a black belt, it's the same difference. But honestly, one of the things I'm very proud of at our academy, at our school, is I can take my 6-month white belts and trust them with new people. Partially it's how you're raised. When I got into it, Jeff, I'm going to assume when you got into it, used to kind of be the Wild West. I tell people that are always like, oh man, I'm so bad at jiu-jitsu, it's terrible. I'm like, listen, man, you're going to have a new guy coming here tomorrow that you can beat up. When we did it, you were the new guy for a while, and you just got your shit pushed in. You got fucked up. It was part of the game. Also, I should have asked, how's the language on this?
Have you heard my mouth?
Fair enough. So yeah, you got your ass kicked until a new guy walked in 3 or 6 months later because it wasn't nearly as popular as it was now. And you thought you just sucked at jiu-jitsu, and then you saw a new guy come in, and then you got to beat the brakes off him. You're like, hey, I'm pretty good at this. It's awesome. But before then, it's just terrible. Like I said, nowadays we're a little kinder, a little gentler. But even a blue belt, when you first start, is essentially a god. I was talking about one of the most interesting experiences that everybody goes through in jiu-jitsu. Right, when you first start, so the belt system, in case you're not aware, it's white, blue, purple, brown, black. And you spend years at each belt. Nowadays, it tends to be at least a year or two to even get your blue belt. And a blue belt is just considered a good beginner. But when you first start, you've got a blue belt who's just beating the shit out of you. And he's telling you things, he's explaining jiu-jitsu to you, and you're like, man, this guy's amazing. And then when you go and sit out, after he beats the shit out of you the first round and you're exhausted, you go sit on the side. He's like, all right, here, go sit here. And then a purple belt comes over and grabs that blue belt. And you see what the purple belt can do to a blue belt. You go, well, Jesus Christ. It just kind of like knocks you on your ass, seeing that somebody who just effortlessly handled you is a very, very small fish in a very, very big pond. All this is just a long-winded way of saying, yes, we want to pair you with somebody more experienced. Pairing two brand new guys, even if they're friends, almost especially if they're friends, I don't want to put them together. Tends to make for a poor training environment. Either they're too competitive, they're joking around, or best case scenario is just the blind leading the blind. So I'd imagine wherever you go, and actually if you want to reach out later, we can comment. Let me know where you're at. I'd be happy to help you direct you to a couple schools.
Yeah.
But with that said, almost anywhere you go, if they have any brains at all, and I've been to a lot of places, it's not always true, but generally, there's more good schools than there are bad schools. They're also going to take care of you. So don't worry too much about that. With that said, if they're not, get the hell out. If you think it's funny when their white belts beat the shit out of you, and they're not worried about your safety, then yeah, that's a bad sign. Get out. But again, 95% of places you're going to go to, you should not see that problem.
Yeah, and I want to just touch on, the phrasing that we're using is beat the shit out of you. it's, I think, a more accurate. Well, no, I mean, sometimes that happens. Look, if you're a spaz, you will no longer be a spaz for very long. However, because someone's going to be like, they're gonna cool you. But I think that a more accurate term is like they're gonna own you. You know, like I remember when I was, starting or lower belts and stuff. Especially when I was just starting or getting back into it, somebody would do something to me who was better than me, and the word that would boom, boom, in my head, just pop into my head like fluorescent lights, is magic. Because I had no idea how they did that. None. And I'm like, I got mounted position. I'm like feeling good. I'm like, I got this, dude. And then 2 hip movements later, I'm on my back. They're inside control, to use some terminology, and they're halfway through submitting me. And I'm like, how'd this happen? But yeah, you will get owned by people. And to kind of just quickly address too, there are more good schools and bad schools. Is like, if you go into a school, and I was just advising a friend of mine, Mark Mann. He's a plastics resident, good guy. I trained him with firearms, and he wanted to get involved with martial arts, get better at protecting himself. And he went to, I'm not going to name the gym or the academy, whatnot. It's not in Philadelphia anyway, but he went in there, and it's like literally 2 blocks from his current apartment. And I was like, so what did you think? Like, what was the feeling you got? And he was like, well, they're kind of douchebags. Like they weren't like, they didn't really give a shit about me. Nobody really tried to help me. And I just really, like, I got a bad feeling. I was like, trust that feeling. Don't go back. And so now he drives 15 minutes, which obviously isn't that big of a deal. But when you've got one around the corner and one that you got to drive to, and he's very, very happy where he trains now. You want to walk into a place. By the way, any martial art, I don't care whether it's Kung Fu, Krav Maga, or Jiu-Jitsu, you should be able to sit in on a class. At the very least, watch it, and if you want to, participate. Now, that's up to you. That's your call. But if they try to charge you, or if they try to hard sell you, walk away. Like, that is a dead giveaway. That's not a place you want to be. You should be able to make an educated, informed decision about whether that place is going to be right for you, and accept nothing less. Let's see.
If I could, real quick,
yeah.
I can't comment on to reply to Matthew, as I'm not logged in to StreamYard. With that said, it looks like you're north of Columbus and Delaware, Ohio. If you are close enough, I actually did some work out there years ago. Dan Siegel runs Triumph BJJ in Dublin, Ohio. If that's close enough, that would be my recommendation. Absolutely, bar none, no reservations. If not, let me know in the comments, and I can try and find you something else. But they're great. Triumph BJJ, great crew there.
Cool. So, all right, we got that, and magic. Yeah. So let's tackle some of the questions that we composed. I had one of my very dear friends at work, Fidel. I love this guy to death, and he would love to do jiu-jitsu, but he works like 100 hours a week to support his family, himself. He bought a house, yada yada yada. And he said, so, and I actually didn't understand what he meant the first time he said it, but he said this morning to me in the locker room, we're going to change, our scrubs and stuff. And he says, so how does one become a black belt in jiu-jitsu? And my immediate response, which is what I truly believe, all a black belt is a white belt that never quit. And that's kind of like a whatchamacallit, so it can be a lame quote or whatnot. But I really believe that, because how many people do we know that get to blue, leave. Get to purple, leave. Get to blue, leave for 3 years, come back. They got a couple stripes, they leave again, And not to say that they may not ultimately achieve their goals, because people change but yeah, I mean, to me, what the black belt, and I want to talk more about this throughout the show, is what the black belt represents to me is unwavering perseverance, and I have taken breaks. When I got to brown belt, I think it was brown belt with no stripes or 1 or 2 stripes, something like that. My body was killing me. My hands were throbbing and in pain. Everything fucking hurt. I felt like I had plateaued, and I wasn't having fun. And then I was just like, I'm taking a break. I don't know when I'll come back. I remember talking to Cecil Birch, and Cecil Birch and Larry Lindemann and Paul Sharp, Craig Douglas have all been very dear good friends. Provided a lot of support to me when I needed it. And Cecil said, so if you take a break and you're feeling like jaded and injured and not having fun, leave and do not come back until you are ready to come back. And it took me a while to really own that, but I did. And I eventually went back and started training again, kind of with a fresh body. Really, I needed to just rest everything. And that was good. We should, so that was something to kind of think about. How do you become a black belt? And what he was actually asking was, are there is it a traditional martial art thing where you memorize 27 forms, 53 self-defense techniques, and then you're eligible to test for black belt. That's not how we do jiu-jitsu. And to me, of all the things, and the highest rank that I have in anything other than jiu-jitsu is a brown belt in Tang Soo Do, which is still very meaningful to me under the Police Athletic League of Upper Darby, Andy Carr. It was a very tough gym. It's what the hell was that it's very, very, very personal. I find the belt advancement and promotions, both in stripes and in belt colors, promotions in jiu-jitsu, because it's absolutely between you and your coach, you and your teacher. And for that reason, it is the most personal of all of the promotions that I've ever gotten is going through the belts in jiu-jitsu, because there are people really that get a purple belt and there's a 2-stripe blue who maybe he kind of subs the purple belt guy who gets his purple belt more than the other way around. But the coach or the teacher, and you could talk to this because you're the coach, but the coach or the teacher he's waiting for that person that's the 2-stripe blue to do something, whether it's be more humble, don't be as aggressive, be more technical. They haven't done this thing, and it's only between these two people, the coach and student relationship. And to me, it's just, it's like somebody, it's like somebody giving me a ring, that I wear on my finger, not a marriage thing, but something that's like, this is meaningful between you and I, so what do you think about that?
So kind of a long thing. I'll break it down belt by belt, kind of what we look for. Because I just say, how do you become a black belt? It's one step at a time, right? White belt, obviously, you get that for free. You walk in. Really, all we're looking for, and we tell you a white belt, your only job is to show up, right? You don't have to think. You don't have to do much. Just show up, do what we tell you. And you're going to learn enough, generally speaking, to get that blue belt on your own. Now, all blue belt, like I said, when you first come in, that is this monumental achievement. It seems like this huge thing. This is also where people make their first really big mistake, because you build up a blue belt in your head. And I'm sure you felt this at every promotion you've had, including this one, because you've told me. You have this idea in your head of what a blue belt is, right? It's the guy who beats the crap out of you every day. and he's so good. Mind you, by the time you're getting your blue belt, you're obviously beating some of the blue belts in the gym. Maybe giving the purples a run for their money sometimes. If you're having a good day or there's a good, certain advantage, whether it's size, speed, whatever, in your favor. But you get that blue belt and you realize that, oh shit, I'm not what I thought a blue belt was supposed to be. This is why we lose so many people at blue belt. Also, for those of you who don't know, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu has a tremendous amount of attrition. I've been in part of dozens of gyms across the U.S., particularly in the tri-state area here. I've been to a couple in Canada. And attrition rates for somebody who comes in, does a trial class, trial week, whatever, gives you a credit card, signs up, pays 25 to 40%, and 40% is astronomically high, will still be there after a year. We drop bodies like nothing else due to a number of factors. However, at blue belt, which is, again, where we start to lose people again, those that do make it that year and a half, 2 years, whatever's required to get the blue belt, they build this in their head. That's their goals. I'm going to get a blue belt. I'm going to be one of those guys. I'm going to be really good because I'm going to be a blue belt. And they get a blue belt and they go, shit, man, I'm the same guy I just was, and I'm not that good. Oh, it's because blue belt's still a beginner belt, number one. All we really expect from a blue belt is the rules of the game and you have a roughly balanced game. You know how to play bottom. You know how to, play from a full guard, obviously closed guard, maybe another one of your choice, half guard. You can escape, hopefully, from side control, mount, back mount, right, those bad positions. And you should be able to execute this as well against somebody. Should you be on top, you should be able to hopefully pass their guard, go to a dominant position and then apply a submission. One of the old school definitions for a blue belt, you should be able to beat an untrained person within 20 pounds of you. Again, this varies from gym to gym, coach to coach. If you start in as a 50-year-old person who's, say, 140 pounds soaking wet, the standard's going to be a little bit different than if you're a 6'2", 225 D1 athlete coming into the gym, right? But generally speaking, hey, you should be the toughest 50-year-old, 140-pound guy in a room full of untrained people. So that's kind of a blue belt. And again, blue belt is still very much a beginner belt. It just means you know how to play. And like I said, once people kind of realize that, oh, I have this blue belt, I've made this accomplishment, crap, I have so far to go, right? You look at that and blue belt's one of the longest belts. It's got one of the largest gaps between a guy who gets his blue belt, right, his first day as a blue belt and his last day as a blue belt. The gap there is massive. You ever go to a tournament and watch the competition? Blue belts are funny, man. We always get people to ask me, hey, how do you think I'll do at a blue belt tournament? I'm a blue belt. I'm like, no idea. I've seen some truly horrific blue belts win matches because somebody worse showed up. I've seen some really good ones get kicked around because some really good blue belts were there. It has such a wide gap. The only gap that's actually bigger is black belt, because the difference between, say, a hobbyist black belt and the best black belt in the world is obviously ginormous. But okay, so you're white belt, right? You go, you show up. A year and a half later, you get surprised. Coach hands you a blue belt, ties it on you. You cry a little, you get your blue belt, you go for a few weeks, you realize you suck, you quit. Hey, you come back 6 months later. We're happy to see you again. You train another, say, 2 to 5 years. At this point, at white belt, we told you just show up, just show up, just show up. Whatever we're teaching you is going to be, you probably need it. At blue belts, where I expect people to start taking control of their own growth, right? Their own, you do start to be your own coach a little bit, right? And it's at this point that you really start to develop your game, right? Whoever you're going to be is what we want to start seeing at that point. Because again, once you become purple belts in some places where there's not a lot of jiu-jitsu, open up gyms. Purple belts, if you watch the UFC, there's guys who come to the UFC known as submission artists, known as finishers on the ground, that are purple belts. Purple belt is an advanced belt. That's the point. Traditionally, we start doing super fights. There's good purple belt will beat a lot of black belts if they have the right game, the right style. Purple belt, again, we expect a little bit more out of you. Also, once you're a purple belt, we kind of joke you're a lifer. Blue belts, white belts, they quit. You might not ever see them again. Purple belts usually creep back in at some point in the future. They just really can't get away. At that point, you've proven you have the right amount of brain injury to kind of stick it out. So, again, if you leave a little bit, that's fine. You'll be back. Also, something interesting there is, again, purple belt, like I said, at that point, you have a well-established personality. I should be able to describe you If I go to your gym, I train with one of your purple belts, and I talk to you, I go, Jeff, do you remember that guy? And I should be able to describe your game without knowing your name or even describing your build or features. And you should have a pretty good idea of who I'm talking about. You should be able to go, oh, yeah, that's Timmy. Yeah, he's a little weird, man, but his half guard's really good.
He's a little weird.
Bro, you don't stick around this sport without being a little freaking off. So like I said,
I'm very much normal.
Depends whose skin you're wearing as a face mask. Anyway, so like I said, that's purple, right? That's an advanced belt. You're truly part of it now. Now, purple to brown, that's interesting. Now, a couple things. Number one, and this is just kind of one of those broad-based stereotypes that does have an element of truth. Your purple belts tend to be younger, in shape. Maybe they're starting to get a serious girlfriend. They start, like I said, they're doing a lot of competitions. They're very good, very aggressive. There's also purple belt matches are some of the most entertaining if you're going to watch sports jiu-jitsu to watch because they've really developed their offense at that point. Typically, again, white belt, you learn to survive. Blue belt, you learn how to play guard. You learn how to sweep from bottom, maybe get some submissions. Purple belt's where you start really putting it together. And again, this is a broad-based thing. There's nothing official to what I'm saying. But that's where guys really kind of dial in their offense. They're really submission hungry. They start doing all the weird stuff. They're buying all sorts of BJJ fanatics videos on esoteric submissions. They don't really work, but whatever. Some point between there, like I said, they get a girlfriend who turns into a fiance or wife. Maybe they have some kids. Really fit athletic purple belts turn into fat dad bod brown belts. And that's just something you see time and time again. They usually collect a bunch of injuries in that time period. Please don't let me scare you away. There's kind of a joke about, why does it seem like every brown belt in the gym is fat, bald, has a beard, and plays half guard? And one of those stereotypes that, you can probably think of a dozen off the top of your head from Daniels. Now, again, all right, so you get your brown belt, right? At that point, brown belts, they tend to, while they're generally good people, you can really become a mat bully at that point, right? You should be able to control people, purely from top, right? That's also we start to really develop our top game, right? Where we want to go is now we're getting more of that classical jiu-jitsu, right? Where I want to be on top. Frankly, jiu-jitsu is great, man. It's beautiful. It's wonderful, but it's better when you're on top. I don't care who, that's where I want to be. Because if nothing else, I got gravity. If I have no other friends in life, let gravity be it. You start really developing your top game. You start really learning how to control or dominate, right? We always look at the submission as dominance. It's not. It's control, which also control is what should lead your submissions. But again, your purple belts, they're usually faster, more athletic. They're in good shape. For a lot of people, that is where they tend to peak physically. Again, that's just a matter of age and having a family. But they chase submissions kind of to their detriment. Purple belt, you get lazy. Or brown belt, pardon me, you get lazy. Right, you learn how to control a person, how to dominate, how to take your time. Hopefully, at this point, you know how to really pass guard. That's usually one of the hardest skills to acquire. At every promotion I've ever gotten, I've said, shit, man, I'm a blue belt, I'm a purple belt, I'm a brown belt, I'm a black belt. I'm a first degree, black belt. I always go, God, I guess I got to learn how to pass guard now. I'm still waiting. There's like 6 guys in the world that feel like they can pass guard well. Everybody else, it's probably the hardest skill in jiu-jitsu to really learn. And that's something you'll find, talk to people, Jeff. You'll find it's like everyone's like a secret insecurity. And the ones who don't are psychopaths. But, and like I said, brown belt, it's funny. It's kind of finishing school for black belts. That can be short. Again, purple belt can usually be, say 3-4 years. Blue belt, same thing. Brown belt, oftentimes just 1 or 2. Jeff, you're a little longer. Obviously, you had that time off in between. Brown belt, I was only there for a year. It was my shortest belt outside of white belt. With that said, what we're looking for there is, one, really kind of tightening up your game. And then if you haven't already, we want to see you starting to take a leadership role in the gym. Again, that's not a universal requirement, but we want to see you kind of mentoring those below you, those younger, helping them out. It's funny. I kind of fell out of jiu-jitsu for a while after I stopped competing, after I stopped fighting. Trained a little bit, in the intervening years, and then I got to Daniels. And even then, I was focused a lot on work. I was only coming in once or twice a week, if that. Wasn't doing real well. And then I finally started to pick up again towards the end of my time at purple belt. And then a brown belt, I was kind of like full steam ahead. And I kind of want you to just be tired of seeing bad jiu-jitsu, right? And what I mean by that is, like, when you're a blue belt or purple belt, You're just happy to beat people. You don't give a shit, right? If they're getting better or they're not. As a brown belt, I want you to see like somebody who is making the wrong choices. They're making poor technical decisions. You should see that, and that should bother you. And you should be like, hey man, let's talk after class. Let's fix that. You're giving up that underhook way too easy, and that is going to cost you the match every single time. You should have a little buzzer in your brain. When you see bad jiu-jitsu, when you're watching the UFC, you need to be the guy going crazy at Buffalo Wild Wings. Ready to throw your beer at the TV because you saw somebody turn his back to get up from bottom. Like, bad jiu-jitsu should bother you, right? It should trigger you. It should set you off your freaking rocker. And like I said, you should be helping the young guys. You should be working with those white belts, those blue belts, those purple belts. Because frankly, again, you're a lifer, man. You need to care. Like, this is jiu-jitsu is your garden, man. Maintain it. And then hopefully at that point you get a black belt. And the funny thing about black belt, it's like blue belt all over again, man. You realize you suck. Right? You probably have a really good A game, but you realize just how narrow your band of jiu-jitsu is, how much that you actually know. And you look and you expect your black belt, you expect to be able to do all that cool stuff that all the other guys do. And you're like, well, I know my 6 moves. That's it. Like, really well. And again, it sounds corny. It sounds, cliche, whatever, but the journey starts again. And that has been, there's a lot of things to tell you about getting a black belt. That's one you'll hear from pretty much most of them. That is just 100% true. You go, man, I don't know shit. I thought I was good at this. And then you start comparing yourself instead of the guy above you, right? Maybe that black belt you could give a good roll to or you could kind of hang with. You look at the whole pool of black belts and you go, crap, I'm back on the bottom. Great. That's wonderful. And hey, if you got the right kind of attitude, it is. Because it's funny, I talk about, purples and up being lifers, but I've heard of a lot of people who their goal is to get a black belt and they kind of just disappear. And that's the other thing. You want to get a black belt, always find a reason why you want to train, right? And you have to define that yourself. I can't tell you what it's going to be. A lot of people come to the sport either for fitness or self-defense. Those goals tend not to last long. And even if you do accomplish them, it doesn't take that long to get there if you're really working at it for one of those two purposes. So you have to find out what keeps you going. For me, coaching's added a lot, man. Just seeing it, just kind of appreciating the sport on a deeper level, seeing people grow. That's where I'm at. Also, just the fact, man, I started a gym. Right now, I haven't quit my day job. I'm a ways away from there. But if I can get paid to play around in freaking pajamas all day, shit, man, that's like a grappling Hugh Hefner. I can't say no to that. That's fun. But that's my very long, very long-winded answer.
Well, but man, what an answer. I mean, that's why you're really so much more than I'm always surprised in a good way of the knowledge, the depth of knowledge that you have about this. I didn't know any of that. I mean, I had some things that I thought about blues or purples, but that's really, really interesting.
Jeff, you just got your black belt. You should be having this whole evaluation in your head. Fuck, I don't know anything.
Well,
part of it.
Yeah, no, but to me, I'll tell you, I really do believe this. So the black belt, we understand as martial artists, if we're humble and we actually do shit. There's always somebody better, more dangerous, more technical, more aggressive, stronger, faster, quicker. So it actually, it's a humbling experience, even at the black belt level, which I've just
especially
reached. But that this is really like restarting my journey all over again. But it doesn't feel, I guess the difference with this, and I'll tell you two differences between this belt and belts prior that I was promoted to. Belts prior, one I tried to kind of hide because I was like, don't let anyone see the purple belt because then they'll try to kill you. And you feel like you don't know shit and you're fucking horrified. Whereas this, I know some things, but the journey restarts, and I'm not scared of it. And I'll tell you, I'll try not to get I knew I was getting emotional at some point. So my father was the one that started with me in martial arts when I was 8, and he's since deceased, which I'm like, I've got closure with and everything like that. But he used to go to every single one of my classes. One, because he had to drive me, but two, he was really into it. He would sit there, watch the entire class when I was doing Kempo and then Taekwondo and then Kung Fu. And he was not here for this ceremony and this promotion. Where was I going with that? But I found that I thought that I reached a new place mentally, and for that reason, I don't feel like it was the wrong thing to do, accepting my black belt, because I was there, and it's a funny thing to say, but maybe accepting it within myself is a better way of saying it. You're not going to throw it
when you're done.
Because I was standing there, at the front, in the front line, during the belt ceremony, promotion ceremony, and 4 stripes on my brown, and there was a little buzz about maybe I'd get my black belt, but I really was fine with getting it, but I was also fine with not getting it. And for me, I remember like I was hungry, to get a new belt. It's almost like you're hungry to get recognized, and Brett, I didn't feel that way on Sunday. And that was for the first time ever, where I was just as happy to get one as I would be not to get one, because I was at peace that my coach Brett, and my teacher, my master, Daniel Gracie, they would know when I was ready, and it just so happened that it panned out. The book unfolded, the new chapter opened. But to me, what black belt really means to me is kind of that. And I don't have mastery of my mind. I'm far from it. But it's a greater level of mastery of my mind. And I believe that black belt not only is the renewal and the beginning of a new journey, both with jiu-jitsu, but also putting it maybe into a new gear, a higher gear, the acceleration down that roadway of mastery of my brain, of myself. To me, that's what it really means. Because like you said, am I going to roll differently when I get the fucking black belt as I did when I was 4-stripe brown the day before? No. But there is a bit of having that I don't know, man. It's like a respect of myself, which is hard for me to say because, my mental issues and shit. Yeah, all fucking Brett tells me is get out of here, tell it to shut up. And I'm like, okay. And you're like, you did it. You did do it again. Shut up. Tell yourself to. In fact, when I got the black belt, you're like, so for this next 24 hours, I want you to tell your brain to shut the fuck up. I did.
Get over it.
But that's what it means to me, man.
So got a lot to add on to that.
Oh,
no, it's number one. I don't know how many of you guys know Jeff or how well you know him. And by we, I mean a number of us actually had to lie just to make sure that he would show up for the promotion. So as a heads up, I actually emailed Daniel about you and James getting James Trani promoted. I actually handle promotions at he's teaching some beginners classes at Marquez MMA. So he asked me to come in there and do his promotions. We cleared with Daniel and everything. I asked him to promote him. He's like, oh, I'd like to do it there. I was like, okay, so Daniel promoted him. I was like, and also let's talk about Jeff Bluevman. I think he's ready. You know, I explained all the great things you're doing, how you've really just kind of like you've upped your game, you're steady, you're frankly just good, right? And that's the best thing. What I like about your game is you have a very old school style. It's I'm going to put you on your back, whether you take me down first and I have to sweep you to get there, or I take you down. I'm going to put you there. I'm going to pass your guard. I'm going to get a dominant position, and I'm going to submit you. It's very simple. It's very much a Daniel Gracie style. It's always been fun to watch, and its simplicity. But yeah, we had to lie and tell you that Nick was getting promoted to purple belt. We cleared that with him in the first place. Actually, and then I told him that I told Jeff that he's only getting 2 stripes. You know, me, Daniel, Nick, we talked, and we don't think he's just ready yet. It's just so you wouldn't storm the front like freaking belt Karen because you showed up. We're also wondering if you try and like walk out then, if you'd realize the jig was up. But so we had a lie to get you there, which is funny. One of the things that actually cracks me up, you know, you talked about like you were kind of at peace, you know, based on your coaches like saying you're ready for this. It's one of the things that I just absolutely love because, again, most of us are broken in some way, particularly who are drawn to combat sports. And somebody will be like, man, you know, you're a really good coach. You've helped me so much. You know, and they'll fill you with all these compliments. And I'm like, well, thank you. Like, man, I trust you with anything. I'm like, okay, cool. You're ready for your blue belt. Or, hey, you're actually not bad at this. And you'll tell them that. They're like, well, no, you're wrong about that. Clearly, you were right about everything else. I just told you. I just spent 5 minutes blowing you up, telling you how much you know. But you were wrong about me. I've clearly tricked you. And that's never failed to stop cracking me up. I'm like, so wait, you mean I'm like 99.9% correct about jiu-jitsu, but I'm just wrong about your overall level. Okay, fine, whatever. You're right. Honestly, the biggest thing with Jeff, his game has you've been at black belt level physically for quite a while. Definitely since I've opened my gym, the biggest thing was just getting you to work on your head game and just believe that you were. You know, rolling like you do against anybody else with, say, somebody you don't know was a big one. Because a lot of times you'll concede ground, you know, you were conceding ground early instead of going out there and establish yourself. So, yeah, when you talk about like, oh, I think the head game's as big as the physical, I'm like, no, it's probably more. In your case, it was absolutely more. Just 2 things to get ready for being a black belt now. And this is, you know, cracks me up. Right now I have like I said, a small school. We're trying to get bigger. So you stand out a little more. I got my black belt when I was trained at Daniels, which big school, double-digit numbers of black belts. Sometimes you'll even get up to like 10 on, you know, just for a single night in class, which is not something you see often. Most people don't even see that many at seminars. But something that cracked me up, especially at like open mats, number one, you're a black belt, your jokes get funnier. That's just a weird one. The other one is, you know, when I was a purple belt, when I was a specialist, a brown belt, and then now as a black belt, I've always liked helping people, you know, so especially at open mats, I'm like, hey, you know, you try doing it like this, or let's take a look at that arm bar. There's something off with it. I'll pull people aside. A week before I got my black belt, I'm a brown belt. You're at open mat. I'm showing people how to do something and fix them up. No problem. Everybody ignores you. Week after I got my black belt, next open mat. Got a black belt now. You start teaching, you start showing somebody something at an open mat, and all of a sudden you look around, there's like 8 or 10 people around you, like you're doing a seminar. All of a sudden, again, your jiu-jitsu hasn't changed. Your game hasn't changed. You haven't gotten appreciably better. But there is that people see the black belt like, oh shit, I should listen to this guy. Like, you asshole, I tried to help you out last week and you ignored me.
Right.
Like, so enjoy that.
Interesting.
Yeah. Very real phenomenon.
Yeah. And also it really has not sunk in.
It will for a while.
You know, and maybe for a lot of reasons, but also because I've been doing it for so long. That yeah, no, you know, it's funny because we went to class Monday and I'm not rolling or participating in a heavy manner because I had a tear in my shoulder, and I'm really actually been very good at not doing anything. And typically I would be like borderline suicidal without a physical outlet, you know, like you are, but
as one does.
Yeah. But I've been really letting it rest. But I was there last night and at Brett's, and I felt I swear, this was the feeling that I got when I was walking around in my uniform with my gi and my black belt on, that I was in a movie playing a black belt. But that specifically, not as a straight up like I felt like I was doing a character, and I was like, this is fucking weird. And I will say though, I am really funny. But the shit that I was saying to Tyrone's 10-year-old, that shit was really funny. About the legs and diabetes.
Please. This is why I'll always ask you to cover a class. I will never ask you to cover a children's class.
Nah, you don't want to do that. I mean, I could dial it back if I had like a drip of benzos, that I could just wheel around with me and be like, you're doing great. Keep it up. So, okay. Next question. Oh, so this is my turn, my time, God damn it, to pay you some compliments, because they are something that I've thought a lot about. They are very meaningful to me, and they are as truthful as I can be as a human being at 40 years old and now with a black belt, if that makes any other difference. I was a Boy Scout for 2 years, but fuck all that. That's where the bugs are. Like, anyway. So the way that I describe Brett, when I'm talking about jiu-jitsu, when I'm talking about our academy, and stuff like that, is I say, Brett has a rare set of traits that are so exceedingly rare that I would say that most people do not have them as instructors. And I call him, which is an acting term, but a triple threat. So a triple threat in acting is, I can sing, I can dance, and I can act. Now, I can't sing or dance, but I guess I can act. So I know triple threat. However, Brett Linebarger is a triple threat. So one, what does that mean? The first part of being a triple threat is he is an excellent practitioner. So he can do the thing that he's teaching. You roll with Brett, you're rolling with Brett. You're rolling with someone good. So he's a really high-level practitioner. Two, you are a great teacher. Many can do, but not teach. Many can teach and not do. So now you're the double threat, right? And the third thing is you're a great coach. Now, the delineation that I see between being a great, and this is also coming from a professional teacher and I guess a student of higher learning in general. I'm fascinated by psychology, how people think and how people act. The teacher can teach, right? You're a great teacher. You can explain things in a manner that is received, and you have a multitude of ways of explaining things for people that they don't understand. If they don't understand the first way that you say it, that's a good teacher. Also, drawing attention and keeping attention and keeping people involved and engaged. But the difference between a teacher and a coach, I believe, the coach has the ability to establish and maintain a personal relationship with a student. And there's a big difference between those things. And some teachers, some of whom we know, they are better at one than the other, or very good at one and really not great at the other. So your ability to have personal relationships and know exactly what someone's game is and where they need to go and what they need to personally apply to their game, to their psychology, to their physical fitness level, anything like that, dude, is fucking spot on. It's really something that, as a teacher of people, and I get paid a lot of money to do it, more than I make at my, as a nurse, significantly more. I'm looking at those things and I'm saying, I hope that I can emulate how you have come into your own as those three things. And that's really from my heart, and something that I've thought very deeply about, so I guess just own it now, motherfucker.
Thank you. I can't tell you what that means to be coming from you of all people, given how you teach, and how much I picked up even just from the teaching on you. I wish I picked up a lot more shooting from you, but your lessons were great.
We could do that anytime.
Okay. No, thank you. It's funny. Especially when I started teaching regularly. I mean, I was teaching at Daniels, previously to opening my gym last January. But that's something I've sought out from you and a lot of other people is what do I need to do to get better? How do I present better? Still trying to do it. Something I really admire, both say from you, watching Craig Douglas teach as well, is trying to be more concise. It's probably my next big thing. As you can tell, I'm rambling. I find the detail along the way. I just, have to get there. But no, I still have a ton I want to get better at. As much as you get your black belt, you go, I got to keep improving my jiu-jitsu. You're starting to run a school, and you're going, shit, I need to get better at this. It's funny, even not just as far as being detail-oriented or concise and trying to combine those two. One of the ones I found really well that I think Daniel does, without even knowing he does it, is he gives just enough information to get you started, but not quite enough to tell you exactly how to do it right, so that you have to kind of figure it out and you learn how to think it. And I've been trying to figure out how to do that, particularly for my beginners. Basically, how much do you want to force feed them? How much do you want to discover? And that's actually something it's very different than what I naturally want to do.
Right.
But I've seen how well it works with beginners. I'm kind of like, fuck.
Well, I got to interrupt you because that's a very interesting point, and that is something that I personally had suffered with earlier, and even to the midpoint in my career teaching firearms, is that I feel like and people still loved it. I thought they had good results, great results and stuff, but I wasn't as good as I could be, and I've become a lot better at not spoon feeding because we don't want to create the learned helplessness. We don't want to create people that are not free thinking tacticians. We don't want to create people that are looking to you for the answer that they're supposed to discover. And the idea of discovery learning. And then there's also the second component to that, which is it's hard as fuck. It's so hard to not overcoach.
Yep.
It is the heart because, so, it's funny because sometimes I'll have, not very frequently, and I prefer to do one-on-one shooting stuff anyway, but it's one-on-one, it's not an issue. But if I have somebody, and then I have the second person who's there with their friends and whatever, and maybe they've got some experience shooting, I won't let them opine much. I'll let them get away with one or two because I want them, feel like you're kind of, part of it. But I will say, if we get into that third, them saying a critique of the shooter, I'll say, so totally appreciate your feedback, but there just has to be one voice in this. Otherwise we get kind of confusing. And so they usually respect that. Because the next one's not going to be as nice. Honestly, you both can fucking leave. I don't give a shit. You already paid me. I'm here to train you. I'm here to make you better. Where was I going with that? But yeah, the whole and they'll say so I got the guy now at this point in the lesson. He's using sights. He's pressing the trigger. He's gripping correctly. He's doing so many things, but maybe his hips get bladed. And the guy will walk over and be like, yo, man, yeah. That last time, everything Jeff said, which is funny to me, everything Jeff said, but you're kind of blading your hips. And I'm like, bro, if I give him 8 things to do and he does 4, that's great. You have to, it's like coaching, you pick and choose your battles,
It's funny, so even on that, particularly, so we try about striking, coaching a jab. It tends to be 3 ways that people screw them up. 1, they paw the jab. 2, they don't turn the hip, or 3, they don't turn the fist over, right? Or they let which also ties into letting that elbow go out. Maybe 4 things. When you're trying to work people in on that, I always describe it almost trying to carve a statue. You're just taking little bits out on each end. I just want you to fuck up a new way every time. right?
Mm.
If you throw your elbow out, cool, do that right. Then you're not going to turn your hips over enough. That's okay. We'll fix that. Okay, now the next one you fix that. Now you're pulling your jab. Yeah, so you're almost never going to get all 3 or 4 points correct off the bat, right? Or even with repetitions, we're just getting it tighter and tighter and tighter. We're just trying to bracket that, and there is a certain amount of like not hammering all those at once.
Yeah,
but yeah,
and Craig, one of those wonderful opportunities that I have to go and help coach in his classes. I'm not an AI. I'm not an assistant instructor. I'm a coach. There's a difference. An AI has Scotty would be an AI.
You know what I mean? AI in the last one. I'm the one I did.
No, I was just coaching.
Oh, okay.
Coaching is below assistant instructor.
Yeah. No, I thought that was the term he used on you, but that maybe
was it? Well, that fuck. I'm an AI for Craig. No, but I consider myself a coach. I'm honestly there to hang out and watch the cathartic experience. It works, but and I'll never forget. So we were working the line during the live fire, and it was like the step and fire drill to learn what acceptable or extension or compression is, depending on proximity to threat. You did it. You took ECQC. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what was in me that day, but I was kind of like, that's me coaching, apparently. And Craig, actually, a couple of us were doing it. His coaches, and he like sent people to go load mags, and he said, so guys, so what's going on right here is a lot of overcoaching. Right now, they need the reps. Yep. And it really it stuck with me, because I was like, okay, all right. And you know what? There's a lot to be said for that. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you just got to let people shoot the fucking gun. Sometimes you just got to let people fuck up the arm bar, but complete the move.
Yep.
And it's and therein, in my opinion, lies the discipline as the instructor or teacher.
It's hard, but yeah, and it's even like rolling live with guys. Sometimes you're like, this needs to be addressed right now, this mistake they made. Other times maybe you comment on it, but you keep going. Other times you just totally let it pass. I'm still getting the right balance on that, because it's my hang up. It's not theirs. Yeah, that's a very difficult one.
We all are.
Yep.
And if you think about like how, and this is, this is said in a healthy manner, but mm-hmm. How long you've been, hung out your shingle and been teaching, and then I've been teaching for 10, 11 years, mm-hmm. and then compared to Craig, 20 years of just shiv work, works, in addition to having taught at the academy level for many years as mm-hmm. a police officer, sheriff's deputy, as a firearms instructor. So, he is and again, so many of us want to emulate Craig,
right?
His presentation, the succinctness of what he's saying, etc. All these different things. His verbiage, so accurate. It's laser-like precise. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting. Like, I look at people like that and say like, wow. And then we do. I guess we just can never forget that somebody like Craig has so much experience doing it, to the point where, and it's crazy. It kind of reminds me of the story about George Carlin that my late great acting mentor George DiCenzo told me, because he was friends with George Carlin. They're having lunch, I think in LA, and George Carlin is like, "Hey, you want to hear my new bit? My new jokes?" And George was like, "Okay." And George was like this big Italian guy. Really raspy voice, and George Carlin goes on this like 35-40 minute, he does this whole fucking act, and George is laughing his ass off, and George is as a teacher and instructor, and Carlin gets to the end of it, and George is like, wow, that was really great. And George Carlin, this is how precise, and this is kind of like what I think about Craig. George Carlin goes, so what did you think about the transition? Like this super finite little transition that he did between one joke and the next. And George told us this story in class because he was like blown away. Like the level of precision in this guy's act was so polished, so rehearsed, down to that finite little detail. That's what he wanted to know. Just that. And I'm like, wow. And that I feel like is where Craig is.
There's also what I love about that too is you talk about true mastery of any sort of art. There's a certain amount of confidence that you need to have, and it borders on arrogance in anything. But there's the fact that he knew the rest of the everything else. He didn't ask about any of the questions, wasn't worried about. He knew they all killed, and that's really cool. And again, like I said, like we always talk about the guy who comes to the gym and thinks they're God's gift to fighting, and they suck. But when you see someone that is at that level, and there is that, again, the greats carry it.
Mm. So let's go back to some of our questions that we had pre-drawn up.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of covered this some, but I'm curious, so fuck it. I'm going to ask it because it's my show and I'll go home.
Yep.
So tell us about some of your like teaching methodologies. Like, what are some of the things that you wrap or yeah, I'm going to leave it at that. I don't have a better way of saying it.
So that's honestly something I'm still really trying to work on, trying to define, trying to understand who or what I am. Like there's things I do, but it's just because that's how I do them. Trying to examine them a little bit more and trying to get some sort of system or understanding of myself, right? So I can take it apart, do it better. Take it apart, rearrange it, fix it, and then do it better, right? Right now, if I had to put it down, there's a few things I'm looking at, and I'm working with a lot of newer people, obviously. The way the way I've coached you, or the way I'm working with, say, Rachel as a competitor, as a blue belt, now purple belt, is going to be a little different. But like right off the rip, honestly, you get a new white belt, and my only goal is to get you out of your head, right? Getting you out of that fight or flight state so that you can think while you're doing it, right? We can start getting you to use your brain. And that's something I think we've been successful with at our school, is getting people kind of early on using their brain. I'm very proud of the white belts we have. They're 6-7 months in. Actually, a couple of them are even less, like 3, 4, 5. And when you watch them, they're doing jiu-jitsu. They're actually, you can see them thinking, you can see them applying things. And that's cool, like I said. But the hardest one, and it's, again, coming from the generation I did in jiu-jitsu and the same with you, back in the day, it was a lot closer to Fight Club than it was any sort of academy or school or anything. Yeah. And it was, you tell your friends, oh, what are you doing? I'm going to go get beat up. Right? And
I regularly got slammed because I'd pull guard and the fucking redneck farmer who's got thighs the size of my waist would literally pick me up. And he had this like, he had made, Stan Brown had made this like very thin foam that he wrapped with blue tarp. There was no foam. Like it was a fucking hard floor, and the guy picked me up and boom. And I'm like, we don't really do that anymore. But no, I'm sorry for interrupting.
Much nicer, much gentler. 2-inch foam mats, sometimes on underfloor if you're lucky. Although that's actually, I try to explain that to people when they'll like talk about like, how soft the mat is, like when they watch fights. I'm like, no, those are 2x10s under the canvas. That's no mat.
That's why it goes thunk when they drop people on it.
But yeah, first thing, man, is I want to break that fight or flight response. If we don't specifically target that can be months, honestly, working out 3 to 6 months just naturally. Or a lot of people, frankly, don't ever get out of that, and then they quit because it is just so nerve-wracking to go through. And most people simply just don't like it. So that's right off the rip. How do we get you thinking? Part of that's just pairing you up with the kind of people that can talk to you, work with you, that can control a match without having to resort to undue force, right? And getting you to understand that, hey, this is a game. This is fun, right? Now, of course, we had striking or we turned to mixed martial arts. Then we kind of start that process over again because it's new, but hopefully it should be a little bit quicker. But yeah, getting you to understand the cerebral part and that your brain does matter. Once we can do that, now we talk about bare minimum level of competence to play the game, right, with everybody else. One of the hardest things about jiu-jitsu is at a very basic level, if you compare it to, say, wrestling has neutral, we have top control, and we have bottom control. That's it, right? I can get you going with a handful of moves for, pure folk style wrestling. Jiu-jitsu, we have full guard, half guard, side control, mount, back mount, top, bottom. Oh, it's top and bottom, right? That's 10 positions. That means you need, right off the bat, you're thinking 10 moves. Well, you learn 1 or 2 moves a class. You do 3 classes a week on average, right? That takes a while just to get you kind of competent. So we start looking at that, right? New people, you try to either shuffle them through, like you try to. I'll change classes. If I notice we have like say 3 or 4 new people in, I'll change the class to make sure it's beginner friendly, right? And I'll even look. I'll try and move it so we cover a position that I know they need to cover. One of the nice things is, and I tell this to people who are starting out, they're struggling. I'm like, man, just write down all 10 positions in your notebook and write down a move from each one. And I just want you to focus on doing that move first. And they go, well, what if it's the wrong move, right? But what do you see from new people all the time? They get stuck in their head and they go, oh man, I learned a move for this last week. What was it? And the guy's in their guard. And before they can even think of it, the guy's already passed it because they're not doing jiu-jitsu. They're just sitting there, right? So by having a move to go, like just something to go for, where you don't have to think, hopefully it gets you where you're going, okay, well, I'm going to do my armbar no matter what. Coach told me to do my fucking armbar. I don't give a shit. Well, good luck hitting an armbar from guard. An armbar from guard is actually a pretty advanced move that we do teach to day one people. Just kind of an old holdover. There's arguments for and against it. I'm actually for it, but that's a whole other discussion on that. But you go to that armbar, it gets you actually grabbing your grips, trying to control your opponent, trying to get a hold of them. And then what happens? When he starts to counter you, now you move with him. Instead of thinking about the right thing to do, you start doing something, which allows you to actually start taking that in, start doing jiu-jitsu. So we get you doing that. We get you to understand at least one move from all the positions. And the nice thing is, if you know an armbar from guard, you know an armbar from mount. You know an armbar from side control. You even do an armbar from the back. With one move, an armbar, you have 4 of the 10 positions covered. We teach you, obviously, your first day, and we review it every day, your hip escape. Well, that gets you out of side control, it gets you out of mount, and it gets you out of half guard. You don't need anything from half guard except to get back to full guard. So you do something like that. You do, 2 moves covers you in 7 out of 10 positions. And like I said, the idea there is if we can at least explain like the positional hierarchy, what matters, where you're trying to go. Obviously, if I'm in your guard, I want to pass. If I end up in your half guard, that's fine. I'll continue passing from there. I'll go to side control. If I can take a submission, I will. If not, I'll take mount. If I can get a submission there, that's cool. If it's not there, I'll go to your back, right? Same thing if I'm on bottom. If you're on my back, it's the worst place you can possibly be for me. So that means I need to get out. I need to get to at least even mount. If I can get out, if I can get a better position to mount, that's fine, but I'll settle for mount. If I can get you to mount, I can get you to side control. I can get you to side control. I can get you to half guard. I can get you to half guard. I can get you to full guard. And then at some point, I want to get on top and then just reverse that process. So again, the sooner I can get you playing the game, that's great. As opposed to just going there and either trying not to get choked out or just trying to Homer Simpson choke your partner. Right? And then from there, okay, now let's actually get you thinking and self-diagnosing, right? And this is where we are with a lot of the first crop of white belts we've had. We've actually got them thinking and self-diagnosing, right? When they do go for that armbar, they're not just going, hey, my armbar didn't work. They're going, you know what? I couldn't secure the grips. I wasn't able to, because of that, I wasn't able to hold his arm long enough to get my hips in position to actually do anything. And then they start working on that, right? Or they start adjusting. So honestly, that's kind of what we're looking for. And there's a number of ways to accomplish that. I'm still working out the best ways, honestly. You have some very kind words for me. I wish I knew this stuff well enough to actually describe it. Still working there. I've got hopefully the rest of my life to be doing this. So that's my plan. Hopefully something coaching came out of that whole thing.
Definitely. And this is one of the things that I think you actually left out that is something that you've made very apparent from the get-go, both talking with me in private and a couple of other, people that are color belts and, may have influence on other people's experiences there, is that you've created. So I think it's almost part of your teaching methodology, maybe, or certainly your methodology of, how to run an academy is creating an environment that people enjoy being in, that there aren't douchebags, that choosing the right people to be part of something, I think is really so very important, and that's where it goes back to one of the first things that I said about, like, when I went to the Daniels place over on American, back when it was on American, I was like, these are fucking hysterical people. Like, I want to be around them because I like laughing, you know? So, and I think that is definitely something that people will continue to be drawn to.
No, that is all right. That is actually, I mean, I look at that as, yeah, partially it's teaching. It's also just business strategy. Running a jiu-jitsu gym is not like running a gym. I've talked to people who run like fitness gyms. Very different business models. They're much more capital intense. I'm like, dude, the biggest thing, there's two reasons people come to a gym. One is the coach, the other is the people. I've been at gyms more for one reason or more for the other. But if you can get both, life is good. Honestly, it's probably a lot closer to why does a person go to one bar over another? It's the people. You can get the same Bud Light, wherever. You can get the same Grasshopper if that's what you drink, wherever. Doesn't matter. You're going there for the culture, right? What it's like to be there. For me, a good culture has always been good people, but that also comes from hard rounds or tough people, right? And it's something I've seen in this sport, and I've seen this, again, I've been in since 2005. I came from a wrestling background. And this is something I've noticed at successful gyms such as Daniels. Is we've kind of in this sport, I don't want to say it's softened, but there's definitely been, if you watched the UFC, right, it blew up again in 2005 with The Ultimate Fighter, and people started watching again. Somewhere between 2008 and 2012, if you read any of the articles, you saw this in Forbes, Business Week, various other similar publications. It was all about how do we get soccer moms into mixed martial arts? How do we get them to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? How do we get people in? How do we get people in? And, do we soften the classes? Do we make the ruling a little nicer? And I'm totally wrong. You don't need to beat the crap out of people their first day, but you need to show them what the sport's about because, frankly, it is a combat sport. It is a contact sport, right? Violence is part of it, right? People are going to fold you up. It is going to be non-consensual. I mean, you signed the waiver, but still. So it's getting that in there. And I think getting that with the kind of person that can fold you up like a piece of laundry, but then like make you laugh about it, that's a really, really interesting experience. And I think it's one that we've kind of moved away from across this industry. And it has been, let's focus on the fitness. Let's focus on the self-defense. Or let's, jiu-jitsu is for everybody. I'm like, anybody can do jiu-jitsu, but it's not for everybody. Like it's a very particular kind of person that wants to come here, But yeah, no, definitely your culture matters, but it's that culture with that, I don't know, I'd say you got to have a penchant for violence, but yeah, more than that, you got to be kind of a little masochistic. You got to be, willing and enjoy getting your ass kicked. But yeah, the jokes help, but you got to be a little fucking weird too. And I try to recruit for that as much as I can. Like we talk about, say, Quinn, one of her white belts has done a really good job. That motherfucker smiles when you are beating the shit out of him. He's a 23-year-old, just got out of the Marines, going to school now. And I knew he was going to turn out well because he just smiles the whole goddamn time. We have a couple new white belts. The one, Rodney, same thing. Nothing but smiles when he's getting folded up. And you're like, those guys will be around. If you're too serious or you're too angry or you don't like, you're too competitive. And competitive atmosphere or competitive personality can be really good in this sport, but there's a lot of people who get out of it, who it scares them away. It's funny. It's actually, I think our sport tends to attract a lot of cops, but there's a lot of cops who vehemently kind of run the other way. And what's interesting is people have always talked about that. I tend to be pro cop. A lot of people nowadays aren't necessarily. And they always think it's because, you know what, they don't like getting beat up by, a 16-year-old girl or, their ego can't take it. We always talk about the ego. What I've kind of come to realize is not, for most people, it's not the ego. It is a very real fear that when you realize, particularly if you're in a job that might require you to get in physical confrontations, and being a cop certainly fits the bill, being a bouncer fits the bill. If you're used to being the toughest guy and you realize how easily you can get handled, there's a very real fear there where you realize how exposed you really are. Most people, your natural reaction is to run away from that. But I mean, you've certainly seen that at ECQC. Guys can make one of two decisions, right? Everybody thinks a gun's a magic talisman. Oh, this will save me. I don't need to learn how to fight. I've got 15 plus 1. Life is good. I don't think I'm telling anybody a story that he hasn't mentioned, but Sean Luca, you mentioned. He came in. He mentions that he was a traditional martial arts enthusiast. He had a bit of an ego when he came in, and Craig let him get the crap kicked out of him for about 10 or 15 minutes because it's what he needed. And he has responded better than almost anybody I've ever seen in that experience because he took it on the chin, and he said, okay, I have a deficiency here. And he acknowledged it, and he did the work. Got a lot of respect for him for that because so many people would have taken lesser beatings.
Oh, yeah.
Lesser bruisings to the ego or that fear response of, shit, maybe I could be alone on the side of the road. Maybe it could be me, in that dash cam video all alone and have gone away. I don't exactly know where I was going on that, but yeah, culture matters. You got to have the right people.
Yes. So one of the questions that I wrote down is, how do you stay the course? And I'll tackle this one first.
Okay.
Because it's something that Daniel said at the end of every single class. Well, there were two things. One, okay, motherfuckers, tomorrow we're starting on time. That means 6 o'clock. So we are starting all of the warm-up 6 o'clock. So be here, motherfuckers. And the next night at 6 o'clock, everybody was there except for Daniel. And he would walk in at 6:07, 6:08, 6:10 with the two dogs and be like, hey.
And his nice coffee.
Yeah, his coffee, his big poofy jacket. And he'd be like, hey, motherfuckers, why aren't you guys doing the warm-up? Jeff, start them with the warm-up. So there was that, which was hysterical. Every time he would say, we're starting on time tomorrow, I would fucking cackle, which he didn't like. The second thing was he would say, come here and have fun. And he would say it every single time, every single night, at the end of class, we'll wrap it up. Have fun. Come here and have fun. If you're having fun, you're going to come back. And it took me a long time to do that. And when I started doing that, when I stopped counting how many times I was submitted, how many times I submitted someone else, how well I did, how bad I did, if I went in there with the only intention of having fun, then I had fun. Then I wasn't dreading coming back. Then it wasn't work because you're having fun. I remember when I was a blue belt, but I would be driving up North American Street, and I'm telling you, level 9 out of 10 anxiety. So anxious. And all the things we put in our heads, the sky's going to fall, they're going to kill you, you're going to get your ass kicked, you're going to be embarrassed. I mean, the strongest anxiety that I could experience in a like reliably. And I would literally think, turn around and go home. Nobody knows that you're going to come today. So if you don't show up, nobody will know. And you don't have to deal with these emotions, with this anxiety. But I forced myself. I fucking forced myself. I don't know why I forced myself, but I did, and kept going. And eventually those anxieties were no longer there. Yeah, I mean, I thought that was really something for me.
Mm-hmm. No, as far as what keeps you going, I mean, like I said, there's going to be different for everybody. When I first started, I already did wrestling. I know I loved it. I wanted to get into mixed martial arts, want to fight. Again, being a wrestler, the grappling kind of made sense to me. I liked it, although, to be fair, not all wrestlers transition very well to grappling. In a true sense, they'll be able to control a position, but they don't ever truly understand it if they don't allow it. With that said, if you have a fight signed up, or if you want to fight, it's easy to have not easy, but you develop the discipline. You're going to go because, well, you don't want to get your ass kicked out there in front of everybody, right? Like you have to go. That's kind of easy. Again, you'll see it as far as the say self-defense people or somebody who really makes a commitment to fitness. Something you'll see time and time again in the sport. You see the people who come from some form of trauma. Occasionally it's guys. A lot of times you see it with the women who come to start training. You can generally tell, right? They've been through something. Everyone's, you're shut up about it, but you support them. And you can see that kind of person who says like, never again, or I never want to feel that way. I never want to, whether they got mugged, had a problem with an ex-boyfriend, what have you. That sticks, but eventually all those fade, right? Eventually either you lose the weight, you learn enough self-defense. Again, you spend a year. That's it. That's probably about what you would need. Past a year or two, you're just learning how to beat up other jiu-jitsu nerds, really. Or again, even look at your shooting, right? At what point did you know enough about firearms and how to handle them, how to carry, how to, do all that you were reasonably safe from, say, you knew about 99% of what you needed to know? Because you've shot hundreds of thousands of rounds past that. You just enjoy it, man, turning money into noise at a certain point. Mm-hmm. Right? There's something that keeps you going there, and it's not self-defense at a reasonable point. I don't have nearly as many firearms as you do, but I'm getting at the point where I have all the ones I need. Now it's kind of like, wow, let's have some fun with them, right? Mm-hmm. But no, so it becomes what's fun, what makes you want to come back there. Typically, it's going to be something about the people, and then for me, honestly, and this is I encourage people to find this. Physical aggression, physical contact in of itself is fun. It is pleasant, right? If you open your mind to that. Once you get away from that, like just being terrified, which we're in an environment that's for the most part safe, right? You might get people get their arms broken in this sport. They blow ACLs, they get concussions. It's going to happen. I always tell people, look, if you do the sport long enough, I guarantee you, I promise you, you're going to get injured. With that said, I look at people who've been doing this sport for 15, 20 years. They're in their 30s or 40s. I look at them, I compare them to people that are the same age groups that don't have the sport. And you know what? Those acute injuries, they suck. They're terrible. Nobody wants to get a broken bone. But man, you look at diabetes or any of the other stuff, or just when I see somebody get up from their couch and pull their back, and you're like, that's kind of sad, man. Like, you know what I mean? Like, how does that? Your body's designed to move. It's designed to do work. So, I don't know. Like I said, we're made for this. It's just us kind of acting out on what feels natural. But
yeah, I'm just marking off some of the things that we talked about. So let's see. Last questions. Take a look at how much? Kind of covered that. Covered teaching methodologies. Well, let me point this question at you, and then I guess so we'll move to wrap up, because there were a lot of things, overlays with certain questions that I had prepared. Mm-hmm. If you don't think that we've already answered this, but what's the best advice you were ever given about practicing jiu-jitsu or staying the course?
That's honestly a tough one, man. I've been given so much advice, and so much of it's been quality. Don't be wrong. Just like talking to people about guns, a lot of it's crap too. There's some absolutely atrocious advice out there. And I mean, it's honestly, it's almost to the point where I can't think of an original thought I have about this sport, because so much of it is influenced by everyone I've had, even going back to my, high school wrestling and high school football coaches. I hate to disappoint you. I'd love to give you some grand unified theory of jiu-jitsu that some wise Brazilian gave me. I don't have one, man. It is a collection of the little things that we put together to learn and learn and learn. Yeah, there's some overriding concepts you need to learn, you need to figure out. But it's really just an accumulation of little advantages. The same way, like if you want to beat somebody, it's not about knowing the slickest armbar. It's not knowing some unstoppable guard pass. It's getting a little bit better at every position, right? And just even on every move, right? I want to do, if I can constantly put myself in a position where I have a 51% advantage versus your 49, if I can do that throughout the match, I'm going to win. right? On average, I'm going to take that slowly but surely. Something that's kind of funny. You always hear people say, "Oh, black belts are like chess grandmasters. They think 10 moves ahead." Full disclaimer: I suck at chess.
I don't even know how to play it.
Okay, all right. Well, then, hey, in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. There's Josh, I think Waitskin. Anyway, so some sort of chess super kid who also ended up being a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. Either Marcelo Garcia's in New York City or Henzo's, I forget which. But I've heard this from other people as well. Anyway, you don't really think 10 moves ahead in chess the same way you don't think it in jiu-jitsu. Because I thought, I first started, I thought that was true. In any form of grappling, and apparently it's the same as chess, you're constantly just evaluating the situation. You're making the single best choice you can, right? And if you continually make the best choice, given a set of circumstances, you're going to accumulate advantages over time so that, after the course of 10 moves, it looks like I perfectly set up that rear naked choke. Like I saw it coming a mile away. I didn't. If I'm wrestling with a blue belt, I just continually made choices that it could really only end in one way. And not to be lame, not to be weird, I hear people who aren't very successful, they're having struggles in life, and you know the type, right? It's always this person screwed me, or this went wrong, this happened, and you're like, okay, cool. And you hear a little bit, you talk to them, you go, you made a series of choices, right? A, B, C, D, E, and now you're surprised you're at F, and your situation's turned out this way, right? I don't know. It's just getting a little bit every day and just making the right choice over and over and over. And somehow, some way, when you do that, things just kind of turn out. So as far as good pieces of advice, I don't really have any. Take every little bit, evaluate it, listen, compare it to other people. If you get enough good advice from enough good little pieces of advice from enough people over time, eventually you end up knowing a lot about jiu-jitsu. There's not any single one overriding piece I can give you it's going to change your life, it's going to change your game. I wish I could. If I did that, I'd already have the book out. I'd be out of my day job. But
yeah. And that, you know what? Fair. I think that is a testament also to your honesty no, I mean, really, because a lot of people would fudge it, would bullshit the answer. Well, I was told, fuck it. I mean, I happen to have an answer because it's at the forefront of my mind for so many years. No. I mean, my answer is have fun. That's my answer. Go and have fun. If you're going and aiming to do that, then it doesn't really matter how you even do. I mean, that's the answer. Not mine originally, but I have thought more about that kind of command. He's commanding you, go and have fun, that order, than anything else anyone ever told me about going to jiu-jitsu. And I also want to kind of just point out, as we're kind of starting to wrap up slowly, is that everybody's trajectory and path in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is different. It is like a snowflake. It is like a fingerprint. It is unique to you. And I think that what happens at times is we're a blue belt. We got 2 stripes. Mm-hmm. And we think we're really kind of learning our game and we're feeling good. And then somebody comes in that wrestled in high school and kicks our butt. Like how suddenly I'm not cussing. And we're like, oh, it's a deflate. The balloon deflates. Mm-hmm. And we're upset about it. And we're like, I thought I was good. I thought about, and you know what happens in this circumstance that I've created, which has happened many times, many people. The guy that came in, well, he stays for 2 months. And during those 2 months, you kind of learn his game. He's a little less threatening. He doesn't maybe have the ability to tap you as many times in the round. And you know what happens? He disappears. But you keep going. Easy. You keep going. You keep going. You keep going. You keep going. And then a year and a half later, same guy shows up. Oh, yeah, life happened. I was working. And now you have your hand. You have your time, you know. Mm-hmm. So everyone's trajectory, and who knows what the trajectory of the other guy is that left and came back. But you know what? He's not kicking your ass anymore because you kept going.
Mm-hmm.
And that is honestly what I did. I just kept going. Probably a combination of ego, fear, more than a little stupidity, and risk of bruising of all three of those things. But it continues to be a journey that I'm glad that I started. And really, when I look at the black belt, what it is to me is, Jeff, you didn't quit. You didn't fucking quit. And boy, I wanted to so many times. I really wanted to. So for that, nobody could ever take that away from me. Not the black belt necessarily. I'm sure there's a way that I can get demoted. Maybe enough F-bombs in class. But I don't know. But nobody could take away the feeling that I have, which for me is a big deal because I am so hypercritical of myself. It is unhealthy, that I stayed the course, you know, and that's all I got on that. Brett?
Yeah, so I do want to just cover, it looks like Matt dropped a question in here. I did want to make sure we didn't leave that hanging.
Yeah.
I also see, looking in the comments, that 69XXX Life was blocked. Not very cool, Jeff. I'm sure he was here to had some great content to drop in there.
I'm like, find me on Grindr. Don't be hitting me up on YouTube, bro.
It's inappropriate, all right?
Totally.
Yeah. All right, Matthew, I had to run out and come back, but I think I caught the tail end of what Brett was saying about the white belts. Did you say you sort of use the Socratic method for them in that you asked them to tell you what they think they did wrong to sort of aid in the evaluation diagnosis of learning? So 2 pieces. No, what I was saying there is, again, I tend to be detail-oriented to the point of where it's actually not helpful. So with their white belts, in some cases, you are better off actually giving them a little less information because it's just going to overwhelm them. And just letting them get the reps out. You have to make, I always tell people, look, the number is going to be different for every single person. The number for Jeff is going to be different than it would be, say, just a natural born athlete who also happen to be D1 varsity, athlete in any sport, versus it might be totally different for somebody that's never done any sports in their life. You need to have, if you want to get a good arm bar, you have to do X amount of bad arm bars. X is going to be different. I can't tell you how many it's going to be for you. But you have to do shitty arm bars. You have to get that number out before you can start doing good arm bars. You have to have X amount of shitty trigger presses, right? Trigger pulls before you can actually start getting that right. Again, it'll be different based on the level of coaching you receive, your natural talent, your, frankly, coachability, teachability, your natural intelligence, whatever you want to put that under. But that's, we're just saying that as a coach, that's been something that's been difficult for me, particularly going from much smaller groups to larger groups, is letting them get those bad reps out. As far as using the Socratic method, ask them to tell you what they think they did wrong. That is something separate conversation. I do actually do that. In particular, I just want you thinking. Again, I keep coming back to that. I keep repeating it. Getting people out of their bad habits, you have to make them aware of those habits. Something I advise everybody to do is start a little journal. You don't have to write down every roll you did, but I want you to write down at least the most interesting roll you had every night. For those of you who in the comments are training, try that out. What you're going to see after a couple of days of doing it, you're going to notice patterns in your game. That you keep giving up the same passes, you keep losing the same positions, you keep hunting the same submissions that just aren't there. Now, don't be wrong. If you want to get good to, say, a loop choke, spam loop chokes. Spam them and give up position trying for loop chokes. Because, again, you have to hit that number. You have to do X amount of bad loop chokes. But if you're not actually trying to learn and you just happen to have a really bad habit, that's probably worthwhile being aware of. Something I like to do when I first came up in the sport, I would usually drive 45 to 90 minutes each way to go train. Again, I was fighting. It was worth it to me. I was young. I was stupid. I didn't mind sleeping on futons or living on couches, whatever. But I had a lot of time in the car coming back. And I would just sit there and I'd replay every match, at every roll, every, just even think about hitting the pad, how I was striking, how I was moving. Something I did when I was in high school, I was wrestling. I had one match my junior year sophomore year, towards the end of it, I had a first year varsity. After a year of JV, we're in a rebuilding year. I had a really tough end of the schedule compared to a really easy opening. I botched some of the opening ones just because I lacked experience. I didn't realize until later, with the benefit of hindsight, that I was actually wrestling a lot better in the second half of the season. I just had vastly improved competition. This one gentleman, Matt, I'm trying to remember his name, from Allentown, he beat the brakes off me in the opening tour. I believe it was actually the first match of the season at our Christmas tournament. He almost tech faulted me. That means they almost stopped the match as losing too bad, except he pinned me before that could happen. I took him a double overtime later in the season. Double overtime, that means it's you got 30 seconds, bottom man either gets out or top man rides him out for 30 seconds and controls him, and you win. We only got there because the guy, I frustrated him so badly, he cursed in the middle of the match. He gave up a free point for that. I mean, it was a tight match. It was a guy who was way better than me. I took him deep, and I lost. And when I say it was the closest thing I've ever lost in my life, I was like, I spent a year thinking about it. Just asked myself, man, if I'd done 10 more push-ups, would I have been a little stronger in one of those tie-ups? Would I have taken that match? I'd like scrutinized every fucking piece of it. I'm not saying that's healthy, but there is a certain level of self-reflection, introspection that you do need to get better at anything. I always tell people, man, sometimes, man, you need to get your ass kicked on the mat. You need to get fucked up, and you need to just drive home with the radio off, just stuck in your head, just furious with yourself, going over it. Right? There's a certain amount of self-reflection. Again, one of those things you can do is you see a white belt is kicking himself after a match, like, all right, well, tell me about it, because what you'll find is most people, they don't remember anything about their matches. They don't have the ability. It's a blur. They don't process it. Particularly when you're starting out, you still have that fight or flight. There's a lot of adrenaline going. So again, anything I can do to get you just to think, both during the match and in reflection, because again, we if you keep doing the same thing wrong, you're going to keep getting the same results. So again, two ways to do that. One is to actually let them breathe and let them do things poorly, so they can realize it's wrong and they can get enough reps in to hopefully start correcting. And again, you guide them as you can. Again, that is a skill I'm still learning to do. There's a bit of an art to that. And it's very tough to do. It is very easy, and the desire to overcoach is insane. And then, yeah, as far as asking people, sometimes I'll even just go, well, why'd you do that? Actually, you know what? If you want one piece of advice to take home, you get hit with the same move twice. Doesn't matter if it's whether it's the same person, whether it's a different person. If you notice it's becoming a pattern, don't ask them what they did. Ask them why they did it. I guarantee you have a bad habit somewhere that you are doing, because people will show you, go, oh, what'd you do? They're going to show you an armbar you've already seen 100 times. There's nothing special about that armbar 99 times out of 100. But if you go, why did you do it? And you'll find that catches people by surprise, because they don't think about why they do it. Not most people don't. But then ask them, you'll find out that, oh, you left your elbow out just a little bit. You picked your head up just a touch off the mat, and they took that guillotine. Anyway, something to think about. And hey, anytime. I didn't say no, we don't do that, because I lack the ability to do just enough.
Hips. Sorry.
Motherfucker.
So sometimes it just comes out. So I'm gonna move to wrap up. Any last thoughts that you have, Brett, about really anything?
There's one overriding thing I've tried to get through here. If you want to get good at jiu-jitsu, whether you want to get good at coaching, if you want to get good at anything, think about it. And it sounds really, really fucking stupid. You're going to, look, don't be wrong, ask people, use your coach, utilize all that. There's a certain amount of problems. I learned this when I learned how to program, when I learned how to do electrical work, read blueprints, anything. There's certain problems you just have to stare at long enough. Until, again, when I'm talking about like the written word, you got to stare until you get fucking cross-eyed sometimes. Oh, fuck, maybe you take a walk, maybe you take a shower, you let it kind of percolate. But some things you just got to put it in. Jiu-jitsu, there's a certain amount of hours on the mat that you need. You can make that time shorter by getting good hours. I recommend, I tell everybody, you need to find your buddy. At every point in my career where I've gotten a lot better, I've had a big jump. I've spent time, high school, I had Jordan Wolf, my old training partner. We spent time during the off season. We would lift, and we would go roll, and we would, again, you talk about making it fun. You would just drill, you would play, you would do it outside the context. Jeff Cobb, Judo Jeff, one of the guys early in my MMA career. I used to call him, this is so long ago, I used to call his house phone, and his wife would pick up. And she'd go, Jeff, your boyfriend's on the phone. When I was coming from the boxing gym in Trenton, driving into Lambertville. And we would go roll for 2 hours, and we would just bounce shit off each other after we'd open up with a 20, 30-minute hard roll. And then we'd get tired, and we'd start asking questions, and we would play with it. But anyway, yeah, you want to get good, man, you got to think in the sport. Again, white belt, just show up. Past that, you got to use this. And now I'll stop talking.
Where can people find info on you and Daniel Gracie Delco?
Daniel Gracie Delco. We're on Instagram, technically Twitter, but not really. Facebook and DanielGracie.com. DanielGracieDelco.com. Literally, if you just Google Daniel Gracie Delco, a lot of shit's going to come up. Well, okay, about 4 or 5 things will come up, but they're all relevant.
Will you come up?
Possibly.
Well, that's what we want.
And if you're not sure, just reach. Yeah, if you're not sure, just reach out to. You can reach out and ask Jeff. He'll send you my way too.
Yeah.
So, go to our website. We've got information there. Email Brett@DanielGracie.com. Again, that's on the website. DM me on Instagram. Whatever. Feel free to bug me.
Okay. Cool. So, it has. We'll get you on here once, twice a year. Get you talking about stuff, maybe some updates. We'll find some more, maybe more specific, hyper specific. This is a very broad, general, and I think really interesting. Look, I'm only going to do a fucking show if I think it's going to be interesting. And if nobody else does, then I still learn stuff because I thought it was interesting. Sorry, I don't know why I have to yell.
Because you're incapable of speaking at a normal volume.
Well, that is true.
Yeah.
That's really true. I'm just lucky I'm pretty because
we don't all have that advantage.
Yeah. Well, and again, you can find out more about Brett and the wonderful work that he's doing and some big reveals. We'll do a big reveal come in the new year, around maybe February. Well, yeah, that's what we'll do the next show. Okay. And we'll have plenty of time to drop some new questions. But again, I truly believe that Brett is a triple threat. He is a fantastic practitioner. He is a fantastic teacher and a fantastic coach. And I know a very, very dear friend. And I fucking love you. I could not have reached black belt without you.
Hey, it's just my pleasure to be a part of it, man. Thank you.
Yeah, I really mean that. So before I start crying again and you guys start making gay jokes, I don't know where they weren't making it. In my head, I'm always making gay jokes. So, all right. Well, glad that everybody is tuning in, and I'm going to be doing more of these publicly available in perpetuity shows on Practically Tactical with various different people that you may have heard of, may not have heard of, but they promise to be really interesting shows about various different diverse topics, such as Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, guns, lights, physical therapy for people that do combat sports. And I really think we're going to get some really interesting shows, and I'm very happy that they are going to be available publicly, for those of you that may not have been able to support on Patreon. Because I know sometimes life happens and we're in a recession and blah, 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 blah. I'm Jeff Blumen with Arm Dynamics and Bradley Tactical, and we are ending the broadcast.